I've spent more than $20 million on Google Ads, and there are a few keys to success that you need to get right if you want exceptional results. Let's go through them in this video. Okay, so the first key to success is that you need to understand the business that you're running ads for, as well as the Google Ads platform and the technicalities. And this applies whether you've got a client that you're running Google Ads for, or if it's your own business or you work for a company and you're running Google Ads for that company. There's a number of things that you need to understand that will dictate how you approach Google Ads, the strategies you use, what data points you use, how long you take to assess all those things. We're going to run through a bunch of examples now, okay? So firstly, and one of the most obvious things is which products or services sell best. Most businesses, if they have a range of products or services, some will do a much better job of attracting new customers than others. You probably want to focus on those. If you have data from other platform sources, whether other ads or organic or social, what people typically refer other customers to, or whatever it is, if you have data on, you know what, when people first get in touch with us or they first buy, they typically buy this, that's probably what will work best with Google Ads as well, particularly for new customer acquisition. So you might want to start there. If you don't have that data, then perhaps you might need to make an educated guess, or you could take a look at things from the back end and look at profit margins. Right, we don't know what sells best, but why don't we focus on trying to sell our highest profit margin products and services? That will mean that whenever we do get a customer, whenever we do get a client, it's more profitable for us. That gives us more money to then reinvest into our Google Ad campaigns. And the longer you do that, the more you'll realize, okay, these products sell really well to this group of people. This product is fantastic for acquiring new customers. Once they're a customer, we can then focus on selling other products within our product range. But we know that this one is sort of fantastic introductory offer. Then you need to go a little bit deeper once you sort of work that out and work out what can the business afford to pay in advertising cost in order to acquire a customer. So basically to generate a lead or generate a sale. And I'll give you some examples. So if you are an e-commerce business and let's say you operate with a 50% profit margin, gross profit margin that is, you need to generate a 2x return on ad spend to break even. Because let's say you sell something for $100, it costs you $50 in terms of cost of goods from the manufacturer, you've got $50 left to play with. Therefore, if you spend $50 on ads to generate $100 in sales, that would be a 2 times return on ad spend. You'll break even. Yes, I know there's going to be other costs associated, things like that, but you roughly break even at that point. Now you might decide, okay, in that scenario, we need to be at a 3x or better return on ad spend. We're aiming for a 4x return on ad spend, and that's a really important number to calculate. If you're a lead-based business, it's a little bit more complicated, and again, you have to run the numbers. So let's assume that a client is worth $1,000 once they become a client, again, on average, and that's one of the biggest bugbears I have with this industry is I talk to a lot of advertisers and I say, what's your customer worth on average? And the response I get is, well, it depends. Sometimes they're not worth a lot, sometimes they're worth tons. I'm like, no, it depends. Average. So what an average is, you add them all up and you divide it by the number of people that have bought, and that gives you an average. A little aside there. Okay, so let's get back to that lead-based example. Let's assume that each new customer, each new client is worth $1,000. Okay, and again, they operate with, let's say, a 50% gross profit margin. So the value of the service deducted the direct costs of labor to deliver that service. So each customer and sort of money in gross profit into that business is worth $500. Let's assume that they convert 1 in 5 leads into a client. Therefore, they can afford to pay $100 per lead. Because if you pay $100 per lead, 1 in 5 converts, that's going to cost you $500 in terms of new customer acquired. And that's going to be roughly break even for your business. Now, of course, you're going to shoot for better than that, but you can use that number then as we can't afford to pay more than $100 per lead. That's our maximum. If we can get it down to 50, 40, 30, $18 cost per lead, amazing, we'll be really profitable. But these are the numbers that you need to know and to factor in. Now, the examples I just gave are mostly based around first transaction value. So what is a customer worth on their initial order? But the absolute best Google advertisers take into account lifetime customer value. So I'll give you an extreme example to demonstrate what I'm talking about. The average McDonald's order, one order by itself, is worth $9. The average person goes into McDonald's, orders some food and drink and stuff, it's $9. But the average McDonald's customer over their lifetime is worth more than $5,000. So let's say you were running Google Ads for McDonald's, right? And you're like, oh, each customer is only worth $9. We can only afford to pay, $2, $3 in terms of cost per new customer acquired through our Google Ads. That would be really short-sighted. You're like, no. These customers are worth $5,000 over their lifetime. We can afford to pay way more than $2 or $3. We can pay $200, $300. So if you take a lifetime customer view on how much you get from a customer, you can often then factor that back into your advertising cost and realize we can spend way more than we initially thought. 10 times, 20 times. You might not do quite as good a job at McDonald's of building up quite such a lifetime value. Very few businesses do, but it still might allow you, like I said, to spend 10 times as much, which can completely change the economics around your Google advertising, allow you to scale, allow you to spend much more, allow you to be much more aggressive, allow you to acquire much more customers and gather up market share, okay? Other thing you need to know is how long do leads, if you're leads based, take to convert to a sale. This is going to vary depending on businesses, and this is going to determine how long you need to give things before you assess the results. If the average person who becomes a lead takes 3 months to become a customer, whenever you're testing things and launching new campaigns, or perhaps testing a new campaign type or a new offer or something, it's going to take you quite a long time to really know how that's performing. Yes, you might be able to use secondary metrics like your cost per lead in the interim to find out, are we along the right lines here? Is this likely to work or likely to not? But really, it's going to be that eventual conversion rate that determines it, particularly for something like an offer. And that's just going to take a lot of time for a business in that scenario. There are many businesses that have shorter sales cycles than that, considerably shorter sales cycles than that, but that needs to be factored in. I see too many Google advertisers going, how long should I wait to assess new ad performance? What, 7 days? You're like, well, it depends on your business. There's also something to be aware of whenever you're running any form of online advertising, that you pay upfront, you get the results later. So if you've been advertising a long time, I'm sure you've had this situation. I've certainly had it many, many times where people say things like, oh, I've been seeing your ads or I've been following your content for a couple years now and I decided that now I'm ready. Well, you've got to think about it. If we're assessing that customer's journey and how much we've spent to acquire that customer versus how much we get back after 18 months before they've reached out, it looks really negative. We've spent money to put ads in front of this person multiple times. It hasn't worked. What a waste of money. They were just not quite ready yet and they did convert. So it wasn't a waste of money. It got there eventually, but it took the time. So whenever you're assessing results over the short run, and this factors into the length of the sales cycle, it's nearly always going to be underreported because there will be sales, leads generated, conversions that happen later on down the line. Even if you're an e-commerce business, this applies, right? People might check out your product. That's going to be perfect for next summer. We'll buy it then. And they remember and they do go and buy it then. That's not the majority of people, but that's enough to improve your results when you look at it over a longer time period. Other things you need to think about are what different markets does the business operate in, and do things differ depending on the different markets? So if you're advertising effectively the same product everywhere, you might want to lump multiple countries into the same campaign. If you're tweaking the offer or the messaging or selling completely different things, that's going to affect campaign structure. So you really need to have a good idea of the breakdown of where do we operate, how do things differ in different markets, and not just apply a one-size-fits-all to different locations. And that could be as small as different cities or different towns within a relatively small location, or it could be different countries altogether. Okay. The other thing to consider, and this is going to have a huge impact on how you approach Google advertising, is what your business has, or the business you're running ads for has, in terms of warm audience. Do they have large warm audiences that you can leverage? Or is it basically all the ad spend going to be spent on cold audiences? It's a relatively new business or they haven't done much advertising. And that's going to dictate things enormously. So take my business, for example. I have just over 1 million followers across all my social channels. I can effectively just advertise to warm audiences because there's only so many clients we could ever work with, right? We have a done-for-you service that requires like detailed time, effort, energy. Like we couldn't take on 10,000 clients, right? So out of that 1 million people, we get plenty of clients. So when we're running our ads, it's mostly going to be just retargeting people that have already interacted with me somewhere else. But other businesses are going to be in the complete opposite situation. Other businesses that are, let's say, software based, well, there's no marginal cost to gaining extra customers, or very limited marginal cost to gaining extra customers. It's not like an agency where we're limited by capacity. You can just scale that thing as much as you can. So in that scenario, even if you had warm audiences, you're then going to be pushing out to cold. And what the business has in terms of warm audience assets not only determines who you're going to be advertising to, but also strategy. So you may well find, and we've had this situation with a lot of businesses, that certain products do really well at acquiring new customers. I touched on this a minute ago. Other ones we can sell, but they only really sell to warm audiences. It could be the difference between, say, let's say you're operating in like a hobbyist market. Well, the beginner's version, the introductory version, might sell really well to cold audiences. but perhaps it's the more intermediate and advanced is something that people buy once they've started using the product, they've gotten into this hobby, they're like, right, I'm ready to upgrade the gear or equipment or learn some new skills, develop my understanding, and therefore I'm ready and willing to spend more and go for extra. So another really important thing to understand. And then you've got seasonality. So most businesses are affected by seasonality more than they think and more than most business owners and Google advertisers would like. We love the idea of like a consistent sales, obviously going up in the right direction, but like consistent sales, consistent leads throughout the year. And that's, for most businesses, unrealistic. Even mine, an agency where you'd have thought it'd be fairly consistent because businesses are advertising all times of the year. There's still peaks and troughs, right? Like in the summer months, things are going to be quieter. Q4 is going to be mad. Throughout the rest of the year, it's going to be more stable. And there are more extreme examples. I would often talk about, sunglass sales in the UK, where you're going to sell an awful lot more of those through the summer than you are in the winter. So I think when business owners realize there is seasonality, one of the mistakes they then make is they try and correct for it. So they try and say, okay, I know. So during the bad times of the year, the times where it's harder for us to get customers, we're going to spend more to try and bring things up to make it more level. And when things are nice and easy, we're going to spend less. So we try and create consistency. That's not normally the best way to go. Normally, it's better to go hard when times are good and ease off when times are hard. You're going to see a better overall return on your ad spend, return on investment from your Google Ads if you do that. That might be difficult operationally to manage. So that's something to consider if you're like, yeah, okay, but I can't have all these extra sales guys for when things are good because they'll have nothing to do when things are bad. This is an operational challenge, I appreciate, but when we're talking about how do we get the best possible results from our Google Ads, it's normally going to be spend more when times are good and spend less when times are a little bit difficult, and understand when that is and basically just accept what that is. Now, those things I've just run through is the stuff that we really look at whenever we start working with a new client, for example. We do a lot of research into their business to make sure that we understand all these elements so we can create a Google Ads strategy and a campaign structure that gets the best results for that business specifically. By the way, if you're interested in a done for you Google Ads service, there's a link in the video description below. You can click on that, book in a free call, no obligation call with one of my team members, find out how we might be able to help. And if you're interested in that, hopefully we get the chance to work together. Okay, so I'm going to move on to another key to success now, and that's using the right campaign type to achieve your objective. Okay, so the stuff we went through in that first key to success, really understanding the business, is the most important thing to do first, because then that dictates this stuff, right? Okay, so we understand all this. Right, now, what campaign type are we going to use? What is it that we're actually looking to achieve, and how are we going to go ahead and get there? So as a Google advertiser, you need to know the difference between the main 6 campaign types, right? You've got search, shopping, performance max, demand gen, display, video, and you want to get an understanding of, okay, each one of these campaign types does this. It works great in this scenario. So for example, if you previously run ads on Meta and you're coming over to Google Ads for the first time, demand gen might be perfect because it's relatively quick and easy to set up. You can use your Meta ad assets and run those in demand gen. If you're an e-commerce business, a shopping campaign might be perfect, particularly if people are searching for the products that you sell. If you're brand new to Google Ads, you haven't done any other advertising on another platform, I'd usually recommend starting with search. That's the easiest to understand. It's what most people think of when they think of Google Ads. You can start there, sort of get yourself familiar with the platform, get some conversions. Then once you've got that conversion data, we would often look for companies to use performance max campaigns because they often perform really well when you've got conversion data within the ad account. That's what Google wants to get the best possible results. Performance max, we love performance max. It is a very intelligent campaign type, but not great for brand new ad accounts. So you need to understand the differences of what should we use and when. And of course, it's going to vary between businesses, as I just gave some of the examples there, right? And I've got multiple videos on the different campaign types. You can check out my channel and find them for all the campaign types if you want to go through and understand those in more detail if you're not already familiar. Key to success number 3 is to work out which metrics matter for your business. And again, this is going to be informed by the first point we went through, really understanding the business. So I'm going to give you some examples and talk about what I think you should focus on. So you would normally want your click-through rate, CTR, to be really high. You want as many people to click on your ads as possible. That naturally you sort of think, okay, great, yeah, many people to click as possible, come through to a website, I'm going to get more leads, I'm going to get more sales, happy days, that's what I want. But there might be things that you're doing specifically for your business in certain circumstances that actively reduce your click-through rate. So a great example would be using selective ad copy. You may have been running ads on Google Search Network and found that the quality of the leads you're generating just aren't good enough. So you could start to add in ad copy that make it very clear who your product or service is for and who it isn't for, to dissuade the people that aren't appropriate from clicking. So you can have in your ad copy, for example, budget criteria or information around what profession someone needs or where they need to be located, or all sorts of things that are going to put people off who don't meet that criteria, right? Now that will decrease your click-through rate, because the people that aren't appropriate will go, oh, okay, yeah, that's not for me, and they'll move on and they'll click on another ad or an organic search result or something like that. But that might be better for your business overall, because if your lead quality improves massively and your conversion rates go up, you might generate a better return on ad spend. So that's one of those metrics where, yes, normally you want a higher CTR, but you have to be aware of scenarios where that might not be the case. The same could be said for impression share, search impression share. So that's the percentage of searches your ad shown for that you were eligible to be shown for, right? Now, there are things that you can do to reduce your search impression share on purpose. Normally you'd want as much as possible, because you're like, oh, I want my ads in front of as many people as possible. Again, get more clicks, get more leads, get more sales. But if, for example, you've got an extensively built out negative keyword list, that might be limiting not just irrelevant searches from seeing your ads, but relevant searches from seeing your ads that perhaps don't convert as well, or lead to people inquiring and getting in touch that aren't as valuable to your business. Perhaps you don't make as much money from them. So you've got a really extensive negative keyword list to really focus in specifically the searches that your ads are put in front of. Now, if you do that, Google's going to pop up all sorts of warnings saying like your search impression share is low and you're limiting potential clicks and things like that. But you may have made that decision to, like I said before, improve lead quality, improve conversion rates, which might improve your return on ad spend. So just like with click-through rate, that's another example of a metric that you would normally optimize for by trying to increase, but there are scenarios where the better option might be to do the opposite. So I like to bring things back to the core metric. And I think that most optimization decisions, so which ad should I leave on, which ad should I turn off, which campaign type is performing better, things like that, those are optimization decisions, should be based around either return on ad spend if you can accurately track it within your Google Ad account, or cost per conversion if you can't accurately track it. So all e-commerce businesses, for example, can easily track ROAS. Lead-based businesses, there are ways to track ROAS and you can do that, and I'd recommend that you do that, but not all businesses do, in which case you can use cost per lead or cost per conversion as a way to assess which ad's performing better, which whatever is performing better, and make decisions. Because at the end of the day, that's what really matters. And if you're optimizing for that, and you're not getting distracted by a lot of other metrics, you're likely to improve things over time and end up with a much more profitable Google Ad campaign. Because that's really what you're measuring with return on ad spend in particular, but also cost per conversion to some extent. I like to remind Google advertisers of this. A lot of secondary metrics that business owners, Google advertisers want happen as a result of improving your return on ad spend or your cost per conversion. So one of the things that I hear from a lot of business owners, Google advertisers, they'll say, oh, I want some brand awareness. I want more people to know about it. I don't want all my budget to necessarily go on generating leads, generating sales. I want there to be this awareness. And one of the things I come back with is nothing works better for true brand awareness than having more people use your product or service. Because they're going to remember it way more than just some random sort of awareness-based ad. Way more, because they've actually interacted with it. If it's a product that they wear or use, other people are going to see it, far more likely to refer word of mouth marketing. Same is going to apply with a service for to do with their home or whatever. Oh yeah, come around, have a look at this. Yeah, so-and-so did this for us. They're brilliant. I recommend. Here's the contact number. They might post about it online. They're going to remember it so much more. And if you have a higher return on ad spend or a better cost per conversion, that's normally going to allow you to scale. That's going to allow you to get your product or your service consumed by more people. And that's going to do all the brand awareness stuff that you want. That's going to build your clout. That's going to build your social following. That's going to mean you have more market share. All the secondary metrics that you want alongside just immediate sales and leads are going to happen as a result of generating more sales and leads, which comes from being able to scale, which comes from improving your return on ad spend or cost per conversion. So those are the metrics to focus on, okay? So I've got another key to success that I want to talk about in a minute. Before I do, I just want to quickly let you know about Hyros. Hyros is fantastic tracking and attribution software and can really help you improve your Google Ad results. It's a software that all the big players in the industry use, including myself. I use it to track results for my own ads across multiple platforms, including Google Ads, and all my organic results as well, which is super helpful. So if someone, for example, comes through and books a call for our done-for-you services, I can see exactly where that person came from. This is particularly important if you're running ads across multiple channels or generating customers organically as well. Without accurate data, you are flying blind, and knowledge is power. So if you want to improve the performance of your Google Ad campaigns and be able to see exactly where your leads and sales are coming from, go ahead and sign up to Hyros. There is a link in the video description. The fourth key to success with Google Ads that I want to talk about is to create and stick to an optimization schedule. When it comes to Google Ads, what you create at the beginning is almost certainly not going to produce as good results as what you can get your Google Ads to produce if you optimize, adjust, and improve things over time. We have seen many campaigns more than triple the return that they initially got through an optimization process over time. So it is absolutely essential. If you want the best possible results, you have to do this. And one of the things that I see Google advertisers do is they're too scattergun in their optimization approach. They sort of do some at the beginning when they're all excited about it and paying lots of attention. Then their focus goes on to something else and they leave it alone for a little while. Things don't, they slowly drop off or they stop working, they come back, then they do a bunch more. And it's too random. It's not planned. It's not thought through. So I think it's better to create a list of the things you'll do regularly and set yourself some time in your calendar. Right, this is going to be done once a week. This is going to be done once every 2 days. This is going to be done once every 2 weeks. So to give you an example of some of the things that we might look to do would be checking search terms report and adding in negative keywords, particularly when a campaign is relatively new. Super, super important. You want to do that very regularly, multiple times per week. Creating new headlines to test, creating new image assets to test, again, depending on the campaign type that you're using, testing new audience signals, again, depending on the campaign type that you're using. Don't be random with it. It just doesn't get done in many cases, or it does a little bit here, a little bit there. It's not thought through. So establish a plan. You can adjust that over time. You might say, look, we're running a Performance Max campaign. I'm going to create 4 new image ads every month to test as part of that PMax campaign. Well, you might decide that that's not enough. You go, oh, you know what? I think if we did more and tested more, we'd work this out faster and find options that can produce amazing results quicker. So we're going to change that from 4 to 8. Or you might go the other way and say, you know what? Those ads that we did last month are still performing really well. Don't think we need to create quite as many. Let's go down to 2 a month, or let's do 4 every other month, something along those lines. So you can adjust this, but really, really important, and especially important if you're not just running Google search campaigns, but other campaign types that involve creative assets. So things like display and Performance Max and demand gen, like they fatigue. That's interruption advertising. They fatigue just like an Instagram ad would fatigue. So being able to freshen things up, put new looking stuff in front of people so they don't get bored of it, but also be able to test the visual element, because that's one of the most important parts in whether or not someone's going to engage with the ad and ultimately take the action that you want them to take, could be an absolute game changer. So really important to go ahead and stick to that. So hopefully that's been useful. For more Google Ads tips, please go ahead and subscribe.